This statement that water has a memory, of course, that practically changes our whole way of looking at the world. Water is a bearer of secrets. It's full of mystery.
It is always helpful when it comes to creating and preserving organic life.
It stubbornly resists when we try to make it obey the established laws of physics, and then it lets the secret out, but poses 100 new mysteries.
To physicists, water is abnormal. While other materials contract as they cool, water expands when it freezes, making it lighter so that it floats on the surface of liquid water. If it sank to the bottom instead, life could not exist down there. The oceans would be one giant iceberg.
The Institute for Statics and Dynamics of Aerospace Structures at Stuttgart University. Professor Bernd Kröplin is a recognized and successful scientist in the aerospace field. Together with his colleague, Regina Henschel, he's been exploring the question, can water pick up and store information? This investigation could shake the foundations of traditional physics.
The
statement that water has a memory practically changes our whole way of looking at the world, of course. Let's travel down the Rhine in the figurative sense. The water is flowing down the Rhine, picking up information everywhere it goes. So the water has more information at the mouth of the Rhine than it had at the source. And the Dutch, living at the mouth, when they drink that water, they're also drinking all that information. Thus, the world's oceans would no longer be something that separates us, but instead a giant storehouse of information, and the rain would perhaps be a data medium carrying information to the world.
A great notion. But what kind of information is this? Can we make it visible, or even measure it? In order for experimental results to be considered valid, they have to be repeatable. But how can we look inside a drop of water?
The Aerospace Institute in Stuttgart has discovered a relatively simple way of making the structure of a drop of water visible. The drops are placed on a sheet of glass and allowed to dry. Under the microscope, they reveal fascinating images that can be photographed with a special camera. The researchers have had their efforts rewarded by insights into a very beautiful world. Each drop has a face of its own, unmistakable and unique. Why are the individual drops so different from one another? What do the photographs tell us? Who can interpret them? What information is stored in them, and where did it come from? Perhaps from humankind itself? Here we have person A who does something, and person B who does something, and person C who does something. They've all placed drops on a slide. They were from the same water, and now they've all dried. And each of these three drops looks different. We didn't change anything ourselves, and yet we get three different images. Thus, the differences must come from the three persons. And that, of course, made us want to find out how it could be possible, or better yet, whether it could be possible. So we got a lot of people to come to a lecture hall here at the Institute, gave them all the same water, had them make drops at exactly the same time, collected all the drops, and then discovered that each individual produced different images from the same water. And here you can see the results. Here on the right you can see that the images of the individual students are different, but those made by a given student are all quite similar. This is the work of the first experimenter, this one here from the second, this from the third, and this from the fourth. Individually they can quite easily be reproduced, but you would never have thought that they were all from the same water, because when you compare the images from the different people, you see some big differences. So it must be the case that information from the experimenter, who was holding the syringe in his hand but never touched the water, must have been transferred to the water and was captured in this image.
Despite all the problems that water poses to science, one thing is certain: its beauty is a great pleasure to behold. The internal structure of water molecules remains a mystery. Science attempts to penetrate the interior of the molecules, to study them, and to get a systematic picture of them. But even the most modern computers have their limits.
The way the water flows around the world, picking up information as it goes, is the same way the water inside you picks up information as it goes, surveying where the damage is and sending back information to our brain. Our blood is 95% water, and our brain is 98% water. And our DNA vibrates. Vibration is a way of sending signals. Your voice is vibration. But your body gives off vibes all the time. That is how the water picked up vibration coming from each individual. We witness all the time how dangerous it is for our lives to be put in the hands of the scientists. They control us chemically, vibrationally and visually. The chemicals in our food destroy us, the vibrations in the music destroy us, and the lights, the flashing lights, confusing our mind. Hidden pictures within pictures, subliminal messages in your TV screens, in your adverts and your programs. This is how they do it, this is what they do. And then they call computers intelligent. Well, the computer is only intelligent as the information that's input into it. A bit like humans, which sadly have lost their intelligence. You're only educated. You're not intelligent enough to think for yourself. You leave your life in the hands of scientists because they use trick words like mystery. Oh, it's a mystery. So you wait for them to give you the answer. Why wait for them to give you the answer? Go out and test it for yourself. Listen to the people who are seeking you the truth. Science is a massive lie. Science has taken over our world and pretended they're there to help us. Well, they've broken down our DNA and they've done nothing with it. You're getting sicker and sicker and sicker. But you're tricked because you believe there are no cures. They programmed you, you see. They flooded your mind continually over and over and over and over again. So it stores in your memory bank, there are no cures. So when somebody mentions the cures, oh, what are you on about? The science doesn't know. If there was a cure for cancer, science would know. Well, you're now discovering there's a lot of information that science does know, but they don't want you to know.
We really don't know exactly everything what happened there, but I can tell you for sure that if a molecule entered to water, so a lot of things changed. First of all, the molecule. The second, around the molecule you have a shell that we call it solvation shell of water molecule that surround this molecule and making the molecule different from the molecule outside water. So molecules can behave differently in water. And it's very interesting. Now, this molecule that you enter to the water will change all the molecule around that was before in the water. So it's a lot of complicated things. If water will be in a magnetic field, so they will behave differently. Sometimes totally differently, because in magnetic field, all the paramagnetic species, it means the species that can change their behavior according to magnetic field, that are in the water will behave differently, and they will change the chemistry in water. So it's very interesting to understand that water can change according to their area, to the area that surrounds them.
To what extent is water capable of picking up information? What does it perceive? And how does it remember it over time?
Wir haben dann Versuche unternommen, zu sehen, ob sich das Bild.
Then we undertook experiments to find out whether things changed when we put something into the water. You can do that, for example, with stones or with metal, or even with living things, such as twigs or flowers. Here you see a petal from a flower, a real flower. It was placed in the water. A while later, we took a drop of water, and we put it on a slide and took a photograph of it after it had dried. And here you can see one of the pictures. And you can see it in this picture. It's the typical image you get when you put a flower into water. You could recognize the flower in every single drop in this glass, of course. That can be reproduced and has significance. And if you were to put a different flower in here, for example, a Sweet William flower, then all the drops of this water would look like Sweet William.
The Israeli scientist Eshel Ben Yaakov uses completely different methods to arrive at the same conclusion.
The odor of these plants that we have here can have a very, very strong effect. Not only if I put some leaf into the water, but just the odor which is deposited around has a very, very strong effect on the water. And this strong effect causes all the time inside to gases from the atmosphere to be mixed in to form a big network, very complicated network of bubbles, very, very tiny bubbles of gases. And the number of nanobubbles inside here, just to give you an estimate, it's about, depends on the condition, it's about 1,000 times the number of neurons that we have in our brain.
The area around the molecule is its environment. And when a molecule can go into water and change other molecules around it, the same happens in the world around us. When a powerful force comes into the world and tricks people to follow his way, people will follow. And then when another powerful force comes into the world and teaches people they are wrong, people will eventually realize, while they still have the intelligence, while they still have some pure water in them, but when the water is diseased with marijuana, ayahuasca and alcohol, then that intelligence diminishes and people are easily tricked, especially when we allow the people that create these hallucinogenic drugs and substances to put chemicals in our food because of trick words like additives, preservatives and taste enhancers.
Every research project raises more questions than it answers. Water will continue to be a topic of discussion for many generations of scientists to come.
I really feel that I'm only at the beginning of water research. And I think all I have to do is wonder how our world will look in 20, 30 or 40 years, you know. Probably our world will have identified these transmission phenomena that we're just now discovering. Some of them will have been identified as phenomena of oscillation, some of them as phenomena of imaging. And when we then systematize them, together with our research into consciousness and medicine, the knowledge will be transferable to the control processes of the body, and we will discover a preventive medicine capable of changing things at an early stage when there is anything wrong with the body.
That statement that water would be a discussion for many generations of scientists to come is very worrying when you understand that the elite class control science. And using the programs on telly, they are programming your kids to become singers and dancers. That is all your children will strive to be, because they trick you that everyone wants to be famous. The only way to be famous is to do something to get yourself on the TV, not study, not discover things. Science is using all the methods to program your minds, and you fail to see it. And you're leaving your life in the hands of these people, as we've done throughout the ages. And look at the world throughout the ages. War, hatred and revenge, sickness and disease. They know how to program your mind. Chemicals, vibrations and lights. It's how they culture bacteria in a laboratory. And they care more about the bacteria because they trick you to feed them with toxic substances like sugar. They have known this for millennia. Saccharomyces cerevisiae. It means sugar mold, sugar fungus.
The short time that we have here is an apprenticeship, and all of us are really apprentices. No matter how many academic titles you have, you're still just an apprentice.
During his apprenticeship here on Earth, Johan Grander has discovered something that even ultra-modern industry is grateful for, because it saves large amounts of chemicals.
In
the first tests we ran before Grander had been installed, the water was almost a health hazard. There were millions of coliform bacteria in just 5 milliliters of water. But in the most recent tests, with the Grander device installed, there were no coliform bacteria at all. Beforehand, we had to change the water every 3 months because it had simply gone bad. There were so many bacteria in it that you couldn't stand the smell. Now there are no bacteria in the water, and it was 7 months before we changed the water the first time. The cost has dropped by half. We use fewer chemicals and save money there too. It's simply wonderful. When it comes to growth, you normally figure the plants need a certain period from the time you set them out. But Grander has overturned all our previous calculations. All the young plants develop far more quickly, and the plants are very healthy. They simply grow faster. The quality of the vegetables has clearly improved, and they also keep longer. Plants are 90% water, and so with water that's more healthy and vital, the plants grow better. The vegetables become more tender. And that's not all. Our whole family has been using and drinking Grander water, and since then we've all become a lot healthier. And it's the same for us as for our plants. It makes us healthy and energetic.
Can water really take on qualities that make it better for people and plants than other water? Although science simply defines a water molecule with the formula H2O. If it's good for people, it should be good for animals too. But what about the placebo argument? It shouldn't apply here, should it?
My oldest mare, who is now 24 years old, had always had circulatory problems in the summer when the temperature climbed. I mean, her hind legs would always become swollen. She suffered from edema, and it seemed to get worse and worse until her legs got really thick. But now that I've had Grander water for about 3 months, the problem has completely disappeared. Her legs are like those of a 3-year-old. She no longer has circulatory problems and no longer retains fluid. Somehow, if someone had told me this would happen, I wouldn't have believed it. But a horse can't fool itself into thinking it works or into thinking it's doing better. Every day when I stop by the stable, I can't believe that she's doing so well.
For me, there's no such thing as a coincidence. It's all guidance. For me, this guidance comes from above, and that's why you have to be honest, hurt no one, help other people. If you do that, I'm convinced that you'll have guidance from above.
Menschen, die von Grund auf offen sind,
People who are open to the absolute, no matter what name they give the absolute, can have experiences that lead to a kind of mysticism. If they completely accept this inner hearing that people have, the longing that people carry within themselves, they are granted something that they could never themselves create.
Und dadurch dann auch etwas geschenkt bekommen, was sie nicht selber machen können.
Ich sage, weil der Kopf, ob das eine Wohnung oder ein Haus ist.
I always say, your head is like your apartment or your house. Visitors are always welcome, but they can't stay unless you ask them to. Otherwise, you end up living in your own basement, and you have to ask other people what you're allowed to think. There are too many people like that.
No one can explain exactly how revitalized water works, but there's confirmation from around the world that it does work.
Gott hat die Welt erschaffen, darum gehört es ihm, nicht?
God created the world, and that's why it all belongs to Him. It seems incredible to me that there are still people who believe it all started with a big bang. And I often think those people must have had a big bang in the head. But that's the way they think, and that's the reason our Earth is in the bad shape it's in.
Johann Grander's explanation of why the world is the way it is brilliant. Too many people of our world now live in their own basements. It's time to come out, people, and do your thinking for yourself. Dr. Emoto had many amazing cures. With his water, Johann Grander the same. The American government don't want you to know this, because they'd rather palm out pharmaceutical drugs that is killing 300,000 of their people every year. 400,000 die of instant death. Sudden death syndrome, they call it. See, they cause it, give it a name, and then pretend they're helping you. Wise up, people. You are made of water. Water can help you heal. That is why they're flooding it now. Chlorine and fluoride. We don't need these, as that documentary has proved. The water removed the bacteria from that factory. Many swimming pools across the world are using this water. I hope this documentary has proved to you that Darwin is a liar, Einstein is a liar, and Freud is a liar, and the Marxist policy that America is following is also a lie. You see, there is only one entity that guides the ones that create war, hatred, racialism and revenge, sickness and disease. Jesus came into the world to teach you how to heal yourself. He was to teach you how important your body was and your mind. Keep it pure, he said. But now we have been forced to eat the foods of science, and they've even defiled our soil, our water, and our vegetables. Does anyone now honestly believe that the Son of the highest intelligent life force would come into the world and destroy a vital substance to create wine? They've reversed your psychology. It was their God, the one they follow, that turned the water into wine. Jesus reversed their experiment and turned the wine back into water. Why would a healer make such a destructive substance? It doesn't make sense. Alcohol destroys you physically and mentally. It wouldn't be logical for a healer to make such a destructive substance. Why would he do it? But you can understand why the pharmaceutical industry would do it. Because they profiteer from sickness and disease. Jesus didn't charge anyone any money, and he proved it by throwing their money tables up in the air and saying it would be easier for a camel to get through the eye of a needle than a rich man into heaven. It is easy to fool somebody, but it's very difficult to convince that individual they have been fooled. And as I said earlier, words affect us. Nobody likes to be blamed for their own downfall. I'm not blaming any of you for anything that any of you have done. Smoking, drinking, taking drugs, anything. They created them for you. But you must now see to continue smoking, drinking alcohol and taking drugs. You are at fault. The information is out there, and the longer you choose to deny it, the deeper into hell you will all sink. They have altered your thinking, and they have used all the arts of science. My other documentaries go into detail of how I witnessed them doing it on the British people. Their entire establishment hates the British people. They used science on them to better themselves. And then they jumped to America and did the same to the American people. Britain and America have always had a top secret science department. They have always controlled their nations with chemicals, vibrations and lights. And they've also controlled them via sickness and disease, lack of education. As you now know, they withhold information from you, poverty and fear. Fear is our biggest destroyer. We can change our world, but we all need to change our mind first. And we do that by stop putting in the elements that science tricks us are good for us. And we also start believing in people like Dr. Emoto, Brzezinski and Johann Grander, a man that never went to university, but he has more intelligence than anyone that ever came out of any university, because when you're taught by liars, cheats and murderers, you become one. Anyone that doesn't have the knowledge of Dr. Emoto and Johann Grander that cured people should now stay silent and realize that the drug that you could be giving to your next victim may kill them. And in the eyes of the spiritual world, you will be the one responsible for that death. So be careful about what you administer. Your drugs are killing people, as the statistics show, and science loves statistics. Water will not kill you because it created you. Emoto spoke of Hado, Japanese belief in the spirit realm that they called the other realm. Johann Grander openly speaks of Jesus, and I also openly speak of the guidance from Jesus. He was the torchbearer of truth, a carrier of information from his Father of peace, love, harmony, health and happiness. Does anyone honestly believe he would speak of such a world without teaching how to achieve it? We must keep our body pure, and they know this. That is why their foods are kosher, and they have defiled yours, your water and your atmosphere with their science. We are guided in this world. The recent tsunami is proof of this. The animals left the area long before the wave struck. But man stayed, even playing in the ocean, because he has lost his intelligence and allows others to think for him. because he has lost his touch with nature and the creator of all the good in nature. Even the horse knew how good the water was. This next clip will prove that there is a guiding force around you, a good force, but you must now see there is also a bad force. Please watch this clip and I will explain in detail the event.
Oscar Tango 06. Oscar Tango 06. And up. Yeah, Tango 06, I am behind this vehicle now, lane 2. I've got the other vehicle behind me. Do you want to go ahead? Go ahead of me, I'll try and put a stop on and see if we can get it off. Yeah, stand by. See if we can do a bit of a 2-car box, get it onto the hard shoulder. Stand by. Yeah, Roger, I am behind it now. It's lane 2. Still M1 northbound. At the moment, she is failing to stop. Stand by. Just for the traffic, she does look extremely ill. Give information on it. Yeah, Roger. I'm trying to get a helicopter up to give you some advice as well. Oscar Tango 01. Tango 01, you expect Toronto first? Yeah, I know we're about to but we'll get the boat around and get down. Thank you. Yeah, thanks. Okay, we'll let the knots know what's cracking off, so we'll be getting close to their area. Yeah, Oscar Tango 06, seatbelt chained authorised, suitable vehicle. At the moment, the vehicle is failing to stop. Female driver, it's 30 miles per hour. Light traffic, the other mobile's got a rolling road behind me anyway. It's low risk. When we've got over the T-battery source, we'll see if we can do it. We'll see if we do a 2-car box. I'm going to try, while I've got quite a bit of barrier, see if I can get her stopped. She's all over the place. I'm just worried if she runs out of barrier, she could end up off the motorway completely. Yeah, Roger, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do that. I'm going to try that now. Stand by. Drop back, see that all the way down. Yes, yes, doing that. Thank you. Vehicle is still running. Contact has been made. Tell the person to stop it. Sorry, you're on time. Stop. Noted. Stop.
That was an event on a British motorway, the M1. That car was being driven by a woman who went into a coma. And when that police officer found her, her head was facing the roof of her car. She was completely comatose. Any of you out there that drives a vehicle will know that in order for it to go left and then right, it had to have been guided, steered. They may say that it was an undulation on the road. Well, the undulation only goes one way, to drain the road off, so the car would have just gone left and stayed left. Something guided that vehicle, and in the back seat of that vehicle was a child. Whether you question this or not, that's up to you with your own beliefs. But as I said, Dr. Emoto, Johann Grander, and myself speak of guidance. There is a beautiful force around you, but when you imbibe chemicals from their science, even their alcohol, their cigarettes, and ayahuasca, you dangerously allow the dark forces into your world inside you that destroy you and around you. Because there is a universal law. It's the highest law in the universe. It's called the law of attraction. You know others. The law of lift that keeps planes in the sky. The law of gravity that keeps your feet on the ground. One law that your leaders fail to abide by is the law of cause and effect. We recently witnessed once again that sugar causes all disease, and they allowed it to be kept into your foods because of money. Money wasn't created by my God, and Jesus proved that by throwing their money tables up in the air. He knew that these people worship money more than the life of others. And this one group of people now control your world. That is why they built a global economy, so that when they bankrupt an economy, they'll bankrupt the whole world. And they are soon to trick you with the mark of the beast, a microchip, saying that it will be safer, you won't get mugged, or it will have all your details on it if you have a heart attack, so that your doctors will know what drugs you're on. This is to create a system of total control, controlled by a HARP, that will be able to send signals to that chip inside you to cause disease. You see, because you've just learned that vibration can change the water. So when you allow this chip into your hand, then they can destroy the water within you. The world needs to rise up fast, because the book of Revelations is unfolding in the world around us.
I can tell right away whether a person is good or not. I can tell from the vibrations. A good person is my friend right from the start. And the ones who aren't so good, well, we just stay on formal terms.
Once upon a time, you all had this ability. But now, because of their chemicals, you have all been desensitized. You don't pick up the vibrations or the signals from the elements around you, the elements that saved the animals before the tsunami, the elements that guided Emoto, Grander, and myself, and many others. That is why our ancestors called the spirit world the elementals, because like you, they are made up of the elements around you. You are made up of elements also. That is what they're now teaching you. They are teaching you that you are made up of the same elements around you. But this is also a trick, because long before science was allowed to defile everything in nature, nature was pure. Pure water creates pure thoughts. Peace, love, harmony, health and happiness. Truth is pure. That is why Jesus said, only in truth shall you be saved. Well, you are following the wrong truth. Worryingly, American science that is championed by their government is tricking our world to follow the other spirit, the spirit of darkness. Their science talks of the unified field theory, which is a connection of all worlds, the plant world, the animal world, our world and the spiritual world, by a unified consciousness from the mind of one creator. They are tricking the American people to use hallucinogens like ayahuasca for spiritual healing, but this brings the initiated into the realms of hell. This book teaches that the Peruvian Indians used this substance to enter the spirit realm, and while under the influence they had visions of talking snakes. These snakes advised them to grow tobacco. Ayahuasca is made using plants that didn't come from the spirit of life, just like the apple tree as the story teaches. But what you all fail to understand is there are two sides to every story. The serpent is one of many forms of the devil, another is the wolf, and when you ingest these plants, his DNA will be in them, and DNA stores all memories. That is why people that eat, drink or smoke hallucinogenic substances speak of talking snakes, as the Bible warns, or running with wolves, or talking plants. This is what is meant by the unified field theory. It means all worlds coming together under the guidance of one creator, the serpent. That is why all religions and world leaders now think that this world and all worlds were created by the devil. The Peruvian Indians said, the plant DNA spoke to them, and your DNA speaks to you. But Jesus warned to keep the body pure. Jesus also taught Mary Magdalene when she asked, how do you who sees the vision see them? Is it the spirit or the soul? He said neither, but in between the two, the mind. So when you get out of your mind on hallucinogenic drugs, be careful, because another entity will easily enter. That is why this book about LSD, a drug released on the unsuspecting American public in the 1960s, also speaks of a dark presence and the body being taken over by an alien being, an alien force. Their science has always tricked you to summon demons. The Ouija board, a so-called innocent game, is another example. Ouija means yes, Yah, which is short for Yahweh, the god of the Hebrew, the god of Freemasons, the organization that now controls all countries. They honor and worship Jah, Bull, On, Yahweh, Bull or Baal, which means demons or false gods, and On, Osiris, brother of Isis, Adam and Eve in your Bible. The Hebrew brought the Kabbalah into the world, then to France, then Britain, and now America. It is a demonic worshipping cult, the secret science of the rabbi. When you understand all aspects of science, as I now do, you see that yeast is a mini serpent. So we have the devil in microscopic form in the plants, macroscopic form, our world, in his followers, the Freemasons, who created science, who also summon him from the spiritual world using hallucinogens. Even Einstein admitted to using the spirit realm, and now science is tricking you with the reptilian brain theory, which teaches that your first brain was reptilian. A reptile, a serpent, is a reptile. This means they are saying that you are children of the reptile, and the story teaches that the devil is the reptile, the snake. They have been allowed to do this by flooding your bodies with the body and blood of the devil, sugar and yeast. That is why you were warned not to eat the apple or their bread, and that is why his DNA is now in you and infiltrated yours. DNA is the language of the creators, one of the heavens and the earth and the universe, and the other, the apple tree, the so-called tree of knowledge. Freemasons refer to their God as the architect of the universe, and an architect uses what is already there to build their world under the guidance of their God. The material that they use is all your minds, that they now control chemically, vibrationally, and with visual effects. And worryingly, many people in our world are now beginning to think like the devil. London is a clear example. Juvenile delinquency is on the increase once again. That is because the British society was brought up on Darwinian theory, that life was a battle, a survival of the fittest and a competition, a dog-eat-dog world. It is why most of their men have big muscles, tattoos, which is modern day totemism, another form of devil worship, and they have no understanding of life. This is the symbol of the devil, and many people have tattoos of a snake wrapped round a sword that resembles a cross. When you don't understand symbolism or iconography, you shouldn't stupidly follow your friends or family. Your body is your temple. When you love yourself, you love God, the creator of all the good in our universe, the highest intelligent life force, the holder of all truth. The way the people of the world are today, not many people have these traits. There are many educated people, but hardly any intelligent ones. Education allows these people to control your minds, the material for the architect, to trick you that God, the creator of all the good in our world, doesn't exist with their science. This way of thinking denies the highest intelligent life force and the creator of all truth, and steers the followers of science on a path of evolution.
4.5 billion years ago, the conditions on the surface on Earth were very, very hostile. We don't know how it happened, however, we do know that it happened in what is called the primordial soup. This was a soup in quotation that was made from water and a mixture of many different molecules. The first organism that appeared were the bacteria. Nobody knows, and this is one of the greatest mysteries of science, how life evolved from the inanimate matter.
How can their science know what happened 4.5 billion years ago, and even further back to 15 billion years ago with their Big Bang theory, and a couple of million years ago with the dinosaurs, but yet they know nothing about the great man that came into the world to save us, who they still allege was one of them. He wasn't. He was born amongst them. His parents were Palestinian. The longer you keep listening to the science world, the deeper into hell you will go. With all their so-called knowledge, how comes you're getting sicker and sicker? Why do they keep telling you there are no cures? As I said, Emoto, Granda, myself, and Dr. Batman Gillege, the author of this brilliant book, Your Body's Many Cries for Water, cured people using water. And as I also taught you, the Bible is riddled with lies and hypocrisy. Jesus would not have turned the water into wine. He would have turned the wine back into water. He came into the world to reverse the damage they have done to it, to make it good again. So why on earth would he change water into wine? He was from the highest intelligent life force, the creator of all truths. The world has lived a lie after they executed the truth and tricked and forced you to follow them. Life is truly what you believe, and when you believe the words of others, you can be easily tricked. As the documentary proved, words have power over many people, especially when they are allowed to force their will upon you with the rule of law. The choice is now yours. Are you going to listen to the children of hell, or the ones that seek their guidance from heaven?